State. So what if a major earthquake were to happen and struck on that fault line? That's why first responders were out in downtown St. Louis today responding to a fictional situation where an 8.2 magnitude rocks the area during a game at Busch Stadium. Our Avery Martinez got a chance to view some of those drills today. He's live to tell us about it downtown. Avery?
That's right. The focus of this is really to prep first responders for a high magnitude emergency, no matter what it is. Now, the scenario is that an 8.5 magnitude earthquake struck the New Madrid fault line, and that during that time there was a baseball game. Now, buildings, well, they're damaged and trains are derailing. Again, this is just a training exercise, but the focus is on those real-world impacts. The reality of the situation is that incidents like this can happen in different times and in different spaces. Now, the point of this is to hopefully help first responders and the National Guard come together cohesively respond to large-scale incidents. 500 volunteers came forward to work as injured civilians as the local responders conduct joint operations straddling the downtown and rivers. Officials here say this is the largest drill conducted in St. Louis of this type and includes not only the aftermath of the earthquake, but also additional emergencies. And the reason for the multi-sided operation is to review what improvements can be made to handle a real-life disaster. Not everything within the exercise has a predetermined script. The St. Louis area regional response system helped coordinate this event to help train first responders and guardsmen on way to work together, especially with differences between agencies. And guardsmen even told me that not all FEMA, Army, or responder acronyms and lingo are the same. And while the focus is on helping people following a disaster, the drills even handle long-term environmental impacts of emergencies. For example, chemical leaks from derailed train cars, which is a real-world concern.
Have to go identify that, sample the air, make sure we know what that chemical is, and conduct capping operations to stop that leak and determine a standoff is safe for the citizenry. And that's something that could very possibly happen during the seismic event.
This training will continue until the 17th, and during that time, 8th Street will be closed to the public. Now, first responders want everybody to know that you may see helicopters in the area, you may see other operations around the area, and they ask everybody to keep their distance so they can focus on these very important drills. For First Alert 4, I'm Avery Martinez, live outside Busch Stadium.